Frequency Podcast Network. Stories that matter, podcasts that resonate.
Once a place for daily vlogs or how-to videos will soon become home to Hollywood's biggest night. Yes, come 2029, YouTube will have the exclusive streaming rights to the Oscars, who, for the past almost 50 years, was broadcasted on ABC. But the move, it doesn't necessarily come as a surprise. Several live events have moved onto streaming platforms from traditional legacy media spaces. So it will be pretty interesting to see how one of the most accessible video platforms in the world, dominated by mostly at-home creators, take on an award show historically known for its prestige, decorum, and big money investments and high-profile guest list, and how all of this can teach traditional media how to take note of how consumer habits are changing the game. I'm Maria Kestane, and today on The Big Story, I'm talking to Paolo Granata, Associate Professor at the University of Toronto, to discuss YouTube's 4-year deal with the Academy Awards and how this move could foreshadow what lies ahead for the future of legacy media. Paolo, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
When you think of the Oscars, you think of, the glitz and the glam. You think of, the big name celebrities, the big investments into production, and, the grand scale of it all. And then you think of YouTube and its focus on creators that make their own content, these at-home creators. And it's not all about grand events and the best lighting and the best set design. How do you see the Oscars taking shape within the YouTube space, given it's so different?
Well, it's a fundamental change, a fundamental shift we will see in a few years as moving to a streaming platform, moving to a different medium. It will actually change the message. It will change the very content. And I'm here quoting the great Marshall McLuhan, who said that the medium is the message. So the medium informs the very content, the very message. And so YouTube as a platform will definitely change the way we're going to experience the very message of the Oscar Academy.
How do you see that changing in terms of, YouTube's own brand and how it's very different from, the big award show? How do you see that changing?
Well, firstly, it's a change in terms of the very core audience of two different business models, traditional TV versus an online platform as YouTube. For a traditional TV, the audience is the audience is there, it's massive. For a platform, the audience is fragmented, is diversified, it can be targeted. And so for a platform like TV, the audience is actually data. The audience is mostly metrics that can be valuable, that can be used, not just to target advertising, but to differentiate the very shape of the format. So it's a fundamental shift, considering the audience as one single diversified mass and the audience as data. For YouTube, watchers are numbers that can be valued in terms of the diversity of the audience, the diversity of the demographics, the diversity of what they like. So YouTube will give people what they like. On the other hand, the traditional TV will give people what they were supposed to like. So this is a fundamental shift. It's a customized experience for the viewers that will watch the Oscar ceremony like never before.
That's so interesting, that you say that and how, YouTube, again, it's really centered into people that use it and it's very creator focused, user focused, whereas TV, you're going to get what, a broadcasting platform gives out. I want to talk about, this gradual interlock, if you will, of these spaces, because, we know it's not really a new thing, seeing non-traditional media figures within these formal spaces, and red carpets and award shows. We're seeing more and more influencers and content creators being invited into these events. some people, embracing these new faces, others thinking they kind of bring down the class or the distinguished tone of the event. What do you make of this intertwine?
Well, firstly, the ecosystem. So media are an ecosystem. So it's not just an entity that can be controlled to some extent. It's a very diverse ecosystem. The ecosystem was ready, as you probably said. The ecosystem was ready in a variety of ways. Creators, users that engage in YouTube in a such way. The ecosystem was ready to provide the Oscar ceremony with this new kind of format, which the core is engagement, is participation. So moving the Oscar ceremony to YouTube will foster a more participatory culture. We will see big proliferations of all around the Oscar ceremony in terms of engagement, actual participation of users that become more important in the very shaping and the very making of this ceremony. In practically speaking, we will see a one-night event turning into a one-year event. It's going to be a one-year-long efforts, even particularly for the Academy, right, to keep the attention going and to actually turn a one-night ceremony into a one-year-long event. And if I may, I can go back to Marshall McLuhan. When he said the medium is the message, he also said the user is the content. And in fact, what is YouTube without users? And so that will apply to the Oscar ceremony as well. The users will make a difference. The users will be part of the ceremony. A wide community of creators, but even people watching and commenting, using the chat, using a variety of ways to get engaged, will actually shape the content. So this is a fundamental shift in the very format of the Oscar Academy ceremony as we know it. It will made not by the Oscar actors and directors. It will be made by the users. It will be made by this participation, this kind of engagement. And again, it will last 1 year, not just one night.
That's so fascinating to me because, when you said that, I just thought of, a live stream in the comments. And I'm sure the hosts and the people doing the interviews and the red carpets, I'm sure they'll be using, YouTubers' comments and the viewers' comments that, we're really, it's you're transcending into a new space where, as you said, the viewer is becoming a part of the experience. It's not just this, audience and performance. It's really intertwining now, which I just think is so fascinating. And I'm also fascinated to see how the Academy Awards might use YouTube's platform to diversify how it monetizes the show, and whether it will be, I don't know, whether it can use, geo-specific advertisements for certain audiences wherever they are in the world, or what do you make of the monetization opportunities that the Academy Awards has now?
Well, this is the main reason for this shift. So we know that the business model was not working anymore. The viewership was dropping consistently. And YouTube, of course, allows an entirely different business model in terms of advertising. YouTube enables targeting, frequency control, measurements, precise surgical measurements on what the users do, what they react, and even advertising, of course, will be customized based on the local needs. So essentially, this shift marks a global scale for the Oscar ceremony. YouTube allows for a global audience. That will be a fundamental shift in increasing advertisers' expectations to reach their specific audience. It's not a massive audience, it's a specific and more targeted control. It's a surgical, activity that YouTube can do because of data, because of viewers are turned into a more specific segmentation that can be valuable for the advertisers. That's again the main financial reason for this shift is to monetize on a roughly $100 million show. To monetize on that, the only strategy is to reach and to go where the eyes are. And the eyes are not on a TV set anymore, they are on a phone. And all the strategies that online platforms have in place for doing that are the only strategy, again, to fulfill that financial opportunity.
Yeah, historically speaking, the Oscars, I think I want to say a decade ago, I think 2014, it peaked in viewership. There was I think more than 45 million viewers watching the Oscars in 2014. That dropped significantly during COVID, obviously, and then it kind of the numbers slightly increased for the 2025 broadcast. I mean, can you take me through a little bit about the Oscars? I mean, how and why has it not been able to attract, its audience and the numbers that it used to?
Well, there's a specific demographic in terms of age. So youth are not necessarily interested in the Oscar ceremony. This is a matter of fact. Last year, I actually, the day after in class with my students, I asked who was watching the ceremony. Very few of them. And that was a bit surprising, but not surprising because, again, they were engaged on a phone and not necessarily on a TV set. So firstly, and that seems one of the reasons for this big shift is to reach a younger audience. That means reinvigorating the very participation in the show, and so a fundamental demographic reason for this shift. And also, there's another level, which is the global scale. So, of course, watching the ceremony from different countries means that you have to find the channel that owns the rights for the ceremony and so on. That, of course, was a bit of an obstacle for allowing a wider participation. YouTube normalizes the access because it's one place pretty much all across the world, well, except China, which is where YouTube is not present for well-known reasons. But the global scale means that one platform is able to catalyze a global attention. This is, again, speaks to the fact that the fragmentation of the different legacy media markets do not work anymore. One platform, which is global, like YouTube, allows for, again, reaching a wider audience, and particularly youth, which were the missing piece in the very picture.
This is all happening against the backdrop of the Netflix and Warner Bros. Acquisition, where many critics are sounding the alarm on the deal for several reasons, one of which concerns itself with the future of movie theaters and the cultural impact of the cinema and going to the movies. Do you think the future of film and TV culture is threatened, or is it just changing and keeping up?
Well, again, media ecology, media ecosystem. I teach this discipline, which sounds a bit theoretical, media ecology, but what does that mean? It means that media are an ecosystem and all media affect each other. So one change in one node of the system will change the whole system. And so they're all connected. That's why, again, Netflix was a game changer in terms of reshaping the whole ecosystem. But in a media ecosystem, things, and so all media react to a change in the system. So movie theaters will likely react, and they are already doing this. Reacting to this overall change means valuing, for instance, what's the real experience of going to a movie theater as a unique experience, as a social moment, as something you enjoy in a unique setting that is different from the home setting. So because of media are an ecosystem, when something changes, everything changes around. And so the whole movie industry is changing in reaction to the change in the entire ecosystem. The very movie production is changing based on the fact that we have data, algorithms that can better determine, the better predict audience expectations and audience desires for new movies or new contents. So again, that tells us that the entire history of media actually was a history that when TV popped up, did not kill radio. Radio adapted to that new medium in the ecosystem. When the internet, digital media popped up, the TV was not entirely killed, but it changed its behavior. So with this current situation where streaming platforms are taking over, so we see Netflix in the very system, will create reactions from the other media, adapting with a more cross-pollination between media. So look at even the Oscar ceremony that we used to watch and we will watch for till a few years on a TV. It's already a multimedia event, right? So to some extent, there was this kind of a cross-pollination, hybridity in all the media mix each other. This kind of intermediality is a unique characteristics that really helps us understand that media survive not because they keep doing what they did, but because they are able to adapt and change based on the whole ecosystem.
You know, you described all this as something very exciting and very, this is new and we should embrace it. In your opinion, do you see any red flags or any challenges with YouTube taking this over, or with, just that overall general change in legacy media platforms?
Well, a few challenges. Well, YouTube and Google's monopoly in the field, that may be a challenge. Monopoly usually does not really help in terms of differentiating and fostering innovation. We need competition to foster innovation. And so, not by chance, YouTube is Google, and Google is one of the main players in AI. And AI is going to be the main driven force for the creative industry. So that flags a big monopoly in the movie industry, because it's Google, one of the major players in the world in the field of AI. However, again, because of the media ecology, because of the media ecosystem, other platforms may take the same brave move in maybe taking over some other major events that can be hosted in the same way YouTube is going to host the Oscar ceremony. So other platforms will react. Other players in the field will attempt maybe to again do what YouTube is doing, and interestingly, likely even the legacy media will once again adapt to this change. And I will say that the other side of this monopoly may be a reaction of the other players that will attempt to do the same kind of monetization. And again, turning a live event, the Super Bowl will likely be the next one,
right?
Turning a live event into an ongoing, engaging effort, right? That is participatory, that is audience-based, and that transforms itself.
In terms of the actual changeover, people are saying moving it to YouTube is more accessible. You have an audience of 2 billion people at YouTube. But then you think of people that maybe don't have a smartphone, or older generations maybe that aren't as, tech savvy, or, I know a lot of older people who choose to still watch these things on a bigger screen. They don't want to watch it on their phone or their laptop. They want a big screen, but connecting YouTube to their TV, I mean, they might not be technically equipped to do that. Do you see any run-ins with accessibility issues on that side of it?
Well, at the moment there is, but think of the opposite. If YouTube is taking over a big event like the Oscar ceremony, bringing to the online platform, that means even the backward process. It means for YouTube an opportunity to take and conquer the traditional TV setting. That means that likely because of this big move and many others probably, YouTube will be one of the many other channels that without any efforts installing apps and so on, you will find on your TV.
Interesting.
That means again, that kind of cross-pollination between media, right? And that happens already in the history of media when, again, when a new medium pops up, it eventually gets involved in the previous one. How many radio shows eventually acquired TV shows in their own programming. So this hybridity is part of the media nature. So that's likely that YouTube will offer the same traditional legacy media experience for those who traditionally used to watch the ceremony on their TV set. And that speaks again maybe to the fact not that legacy media is disappearing and going into the media platform, the online media platform, but it means also the opposite, that media platforms are now taking over the traditional media legacy.
My last question for you, Paolo, we're about 4 months away or less than 4 months away from the next Oscars. What do you think ABC will be pulling out of its hat to kind of, I don't know, it's the next show after this big announcement. They only have a few more shows left. What do you think ABC is going to pull out of its sleeve to, I don't know, go out with a bang, I guess?
Interesting. Again, in terms of reaction, when things change, more traditional ways of doing may be retrieved, right? So what makes an Oscar ceremony so unique is what happens in that moment, what happens in the theater, what happens in that specific performance, because at the moment, it's a one-night performance, even if it's surrounded by, of course, many preliminaries. But the uniqueness of the very performance, the uniqueness of that moment, the here and now effect will be likely highlighted by ABC. ABC, that's their only chance, right, to really make that one event so unique that it cannot be experienced in the same way in the media platforms, in other online settings. Again, to value the uniqueness of that moment, that night. Movie theaters actually may run with the same logic, the same mechanism, right? So you go to a movie theater because you experience something unique that happens only there, right? As not the same as you can experience at home. And so I expect that ABC will adopt a differentiation of their offering by fostering visibility in other platforms and so on. But they will likely, like many other TV shows, foster the uniqueness of the performance that happens here and now, right? The nowness of the moment. So after all, why we like a live show, because we know that something is a happening. It's not just a content. It's something that we feel to be there, right? Because we know that it's happening in that specific moment. The YouTube model for the Oscar ceremony likely will change this logic because it's no longer a here and now. The Oscar ceremony will be always and everywhere, right? From here and now to always and everywhere. And likely ABC will, to my opinion, will foster the here and now approach. So something that is unique, right? And catalyzes attention because it cannot be experienced in the same way in a different settings.
All right. Well, we'll be watching in on next year's Oscars. Paolo Granata, Associate Professor at the University of Toronto. Thank you so much for this conversation.
Thank you, Maria, for hosting.
And that was The Big Story. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this conversation. Send us an email at hello@thebigstorypodcast.ca or reach us on Blue Sky at The Big Story. If you know someone that might enjoy this episode, be sure to send it to them. You can listen to The Big Story every day on the Seeker app or wherever you get your podcasts. The Big Story is produced by me, Maria Kestane. Diana Kay is the head of strategy and content. Desi Nair is the manager of podcast operations. Thanks for listening.